All right, so we have some absolutely crazy news out of Israel. I don't think this is exactly what many people were expecting. I know that Iran had issued some warnings, but I don't know how many people actually thought that Iran would take action. It seemed like a bit of saber rattling, a bit of barking, but we didn't know that they would necessarily bite. Iran launched at least 300 projectiles into Israel. 99% of these missiles were intercepted by the Iron Dome, which is really, really good. Because, you know, when I first heard, ooh, Iran is attacking Israel, I thought, oh my, there's going to be some death on the ground. No, actually, not really. There was only one person injured. It wasn't even a Jew. It was a 7-year-old Bedouin Arab girl who was seriously injured. I believe that she is going to make it out alive, but she was not killed. So 0 casualties for 300 drones. That's actually some pretty good news, some silver lining in this whole situation. Also, America did help. If we're going to talk about moving on to the American response, I think has been interestingly measured. The U.S. military did help destroy some of the drones that Iran fired. Also, some of those drones were launched out of Yemen. But to be honest, the response in general was pretty measured, because for the most part, if you read through this, and it's actually not that long, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it just praised Israel for defending itself and said that we're going to keep an eye out for the region, and we're going to see and pay attention to any Iranian attacks on American soil. If Iran attacks American soil, then we will certainly respond. We're going to be keeping a close eye on that. That's basically what this response from the Biden White House was. Also praised Israel for defending itself using the Iron Dome, which I think was pretty good, because a lot of the messaging out of the Biden White House lately has been extremely negative, basically chiding Netanyahu for whatever he would do when it comes to attacking Hamas, which I think is relatively inappropriate, right? Like, Hamas does need to be defeated. I understand, chiding Netanyahu for violations of international law or humanitarian rights, those types of things. But that's different than saying that Netanyahu shouldn't be, fighting Hamas at all. That's an entirely different story. Now, there was yet another response from Biden, which I think was another W, a rare Biden W. Benjamin Netanyahu said that America would not participate in any sort of counterstrike against Iran, which in hindsight sounds pretty silly. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, this one tiny nation attacks one of our allies and we just go gung-ho and nuke the place. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. So this is one of the few instances where I've looked at something that Joe Biden has done and I'm like, this is really good. This is smart. We don't want to embroil ourselves in this international conflict. I would question America shooting down some drones that Iran has fired, because honestly, defending themselves is Israel's job. It's not America's job to defend Israel. But I will say, at the very least, this was a defensive tactic. It wasn't America, launching missiles on Iranian soldiers, right? I think that would be entirely inappropriate at the current state of affairs. It was something that, while I mildly disagree with it, is not completely outside the bounds of what America might reasonably do. It's not an out of proportion escalation of this conflict. So, not entirely upset about that. I'm not all twisted up into a billion trillion knots over that decision. But yeah, Biden said that America would not strike Iran. I think that is a good thing. Now, there was some messaging that Joe Biden basically said, and actually this just got revised. I'm glad this headline got revised, because when I was doing my show prep, this article literally said that Biden was opposing Israel because Israel had said they would respond to Iran, and saying that Netanyahu should not respond. But in reality, all that was said was from that previous headline which is that America is not going to participate or support any sort of attack against Iran because, hey, it's not our job. So some people went and took that, including the editors for Washington Examiner. I don't see any note about the correction, but some people took this to mean that, hey, by not supporting a counterattack means that, you know, America opposes a counterattack and that Netanyahu should not do it. No, it just means that we're not going to participate in it. We're not going to necessarily condone it. But that's not the same as condemning it. I mean, and I do understand why some people took it this way. Like it says here, Biden framed the interceptions as a win over Iran already. Says, you got a win, take the win. Biden told Netanyahu, according to a White House senior official. Yep, this is from Axios. This is the source. Biden told Bibi, U.S. won't support an Israeli counterattack in Iran. So this is like a major shift, a major change in what's been going on in the Middle East, because we've been knowing that Hamas has kind of gotten beaten badly, but they're not yet entirely destroyed. Israel's been trying to broker to get some more hostages back, but Hamas has basically said that they don't even know where the hostages are at this point. One thing I found very interesting in this whole situation is Biden's measured response. I think part of this, unfortunately, to be honest, is because the Democratic Party has slowly but surely been turning against Israel amongst calls from certain conspiracy theorists who are arguing that Israel is committing a genocide. So, but to be fair, right? Like, I'm not going to get mad at Joe Biden for doing the right thing for the wrong reason, especially for because he's a Democrat, right? I'll take a win where we can get one. Right? We should not be embroiling ourselves in this conflict. It's not our job to defend Israel. It's Israel's job to defend Israel. I understand that, right, that we want to, funnel money into the military and the industrial complex or whatever. But at the end of the day, further American entanglement into this conflict is going to do nothing but hasten the advent of World War III, which we really don't want to see. Honestly, low-key, I don't think that this thing can be stopped overnight with Joe Biden in power. Joe Biden, I think, has kind of portrayed himself to be a relatively weak president when it comes to international standing. However, I at the very least, I want Joe Biden to slow things down so that at the very least, by the time the election comes, Trump wins the election and then he can fix everything. I don't know if he'd actually be able to fix everything, but I think that Trump would be more effective in de-escalating things than Joe Biden has been. But that said, and I wish I had these articles in front of me, because I was listening to the radio. I think it was the Blaze Radio Network, and they were bringing this up. I think one positive side effect of Joe Biden's weakness is that this has forced other nations to step up. For example, I think at least Jordan and one other nearby Arab nation has decided to, instead of cheering in support of Iran, they've decided to actually support Israel and say, yo, no, Iran, this is like too far. This is too much. Like you can't be going over here trying to like send 300 missiles to Israel for basically no reason. I know some people like Al Jazeera have been saying that this was a retaliation, but there's been no word on what this is actually retaliation for. It doesn't really seem like a retaliation of anything. If anything, it's just Iran escalating the situation. But it's been nice to see more countries in the region stepping up and saying, you know what, we're not going to stand for this. I think that Joe Biden's weakness has sort of like forced their hand on that, because Joe Biden, I think, has been relatively lax. He's kind of shown that he is not necessarily eager to support Israel anymore. And what does that mean? That means that either everyone leaves Israel alone and Israel eventually just gets obliterated, right? Especially if Joe Biden becomes president, wins his reelection, or it means that other countries step up and say, you know what, we're going to step in. We're not going to allow this to happen. Because let's be honest, it would make all the other nations look bad if, now of course, America's going to look bad if Joe Biden steps back and allows Israel to be destroyed. I doubt that would happen, of course, but hypothetically, if that was to happen, that would make America look bad. But it also make the nearby nations look bad. People have already been looking at Egypt sideways for not being willing to take in citizens from Gaza in the advent of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's been nice to see, positive side effects of the Joe Biden administration. I'm a Republican. I'm going to be voting for Trump in the 2024 election, I believe. But, I think it's fair to try and look at the actions and positions and statements and policies of even Democratic politicians as objectively as possible. And you have to give them credit where credit is due. I think Joe Biden deserves some credit here. Even if he's doing this for the wrong reason, I'm happy about this. I'm glad that we're not, escalating things. Joe Biden has fumbled the bag with other things internationally, particularly with the pullout of Afghanistan. He's not fumbling the bag here so far. So we can rest easy a little bit knowing that at least America is not going to have a hand in bringing us closer to World War III, at least not at the time of this recording. So we'll see. There's no word yet on what the Israeli response to this is going to be. Hopefully that response is measured. Hopefully they choose military targets. Frankly, I hope that they target military bases and the facilities that were used to manufacture the drones that were fired at Israel, because then that's actually not just a retaliation thing. It's a functional thing, right? That reduces Iran's capabilities for, launching more drones at America. Hopefully they do something like that. Doesn't kill too many civilians, because, I always hate to see civilians die. I don't love war necessarily. I think that in some cases war is necessary, but I don't really love it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see Israel's response. Hopefully Israel's response to Iran's escalation doesn't lead to a World War III, but honestly, we'll just have to wait and see. And I guess, sit back and pray that, the whole world doesn't blow up and fall apart. Because that's pretty much all that we can do. We can pray and we can vote. So do those things, I guess.